Good afternoon, folks. This is Brother Allen with Bible Commentary for Thinking Christians. I have been asked by one of my Friday Bible study group participants if I would make videos concerning the book of Daniel that we are currently studying. Our study at the library is about an hour and a half long, so that's far too long for a video. So I decided to make videos away from that. But in order for us to understand the book of Daniel, we have to go back and look at the background. So we're going to start in the Bible with Father Abraham, who was the patriarch of Judaism and also of Islam. But Abraham lived about 2100 BC, between 2100 and 1900 BC. And God made promises to Abraham. It is also called the Abrahamic Covenant. And as you can see in Genesis 12, chapter 12, 15, and 17, you may read those promises. But I'm just going to share with you a few today that is found in Genesis chapter 12, verses 2, 3, and 7. So God promised Abraham that he would make Abraham a great nation, and that he would bless him, and that he would make Abraham's name very, very great. And here's what God said in the book of Genesis chapter 12, verses 2 and 3. In thee, Abraham, shall all, that's A-L-L, all families of the earth be blessed. That promise that God made to Abraham is also repeated in Genesis chapter 18, verse 18, where he said that all nations and families would be great upon the earth, and that Abraham would be blessed by that. But he also said, unto your seed, Abraham, will I give you the land of Canaan. So that's very, very important that we understand this Abrahamic covenant. Because in the New Testament, especially in the book of Romans, we are talking about this seed of Abraham, Isaac, from which the promise would be fulfilled. So Abraham did have two sons. And Isaac, since Sarah was past the age of bearing children, God promised Abraham that Isaac would still be born from Sarah, because that was the promise. And Isaac would be born of the Spirit. Also in Genesis chapter 22, verse 17, this is vitally important to understand the book of Daniel. He said, I will bless thee, Abraham, and I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand which is upon the sea. So God is promising Abraham that all families, all people of the earth, all nations of the earth would be blessed through the covenant that God made with Abraham. Of course, we know that in Genesis 12, verse 13, that because Sarah had not yet conceived, Abraham goes into his handmaid, his handservant, Hagar, and produces a fleshly son, and his name is Ishmael. But the thing about this was, too, that in Genesis 12, verse 13, God promised Ishmael to be a great nation unto himself. And of course, Sarah came to Abraham and said, "Cast out this bondwoman and her son. They are not part of our household." So Hagar and Ishmael were cast out. And Sarah, miraculously by the Spirit of God, conceived Isaac, who would be the seed to make the promise to Abraham come true. Now Isaac, the son of promise or the Spirit, lived between 1896 BC and 1716 BC. Then Isaac bare 2 sons. One was Esau, and the other was Jacob. Jacob lived between 1836 BC and 1689 before Christ. Then Jacob, the son of Isaac, the son of Abraham, the seed, had 12 sons. These 12 sons would become eventually the 12 tribes of Israel. Now, I'm only giving you a little bit of background here, and we will proceed with more background because we will follow up from Jacob to Joseph. We know that the 12 sons, the 11 sons, conspired to have Joseph sold into slavery. They were jealous of Joseph. Joseph had told his father that the time was coming when Jacob and the 11 sons would bow to Joseph and pay obedience unto him. This upset the 11 brothers. So they decided to sell him into slavery. And eventually Joseph, as you know, if you know your Bible, ended up in the Egyptian household. And he found favor with Pharaoh and was given a very high position in Pharaoh's household. Meanwhile, back at Jacob's household, there was a tremendous famine in the land. And Jacob and his 12 sons and their wives and children began to starve to death. So Jacob sent a couple of sons to Egypt to speak about getting food. And they ended up in the presence of their beloved brother, Joseph. Of course, as the story goes, and you can read this, Joseph brought Jacob and all of his brothers and all of their families into Egypt so that he Joseph could care for them and let them survive. This is important, folks. Going back to Ishmael and Isaac, these two are an allegory as well in the Old Testament of the covenants in the book of Hebrews, and it plainly says that. Ishmael represented the old covenant of 613 laws, and Isaac represented the seed, the new covenant. I just wanted to throw that in. I want to make these videos rather short, but it is important that we start back 2100 BC with Abraham. Because in the New Testament, in the New Covenant creation, we are talking about fulfilling the covenant promises that God made to Abraham. And the book of Daniel is very important, a study of the fulfillment of the, not the end of time, but the time of the end of the Old Covenant. So I hope today I have given you a little bit of background. I will pick up again with Joseph next time and come forward to the time of Saul, to the time of David, to the time of Solomon, to the time of the creation of the house of Israel, which at that time comprised of the 12 tribes or sons of Jacob. Until next time, may God bless us all.